Alright, this is the Chinese National Consumer Good Corporation CNC Scandal Solution Recommendation and Justification presentation. My name is Tom Hansen, CNC's European District Marketing Manager, and I was just thinking this morning that it's been, awkwardly enough, precisely 4 years since I first started working as the marketing manager of CNC's European District, and how authentic and unique of a brand and company it has grown to be within the European region during this time. Except for the bad company image the recent controversial Paw bath gel commercial has caused the company to have among the European target market consumers. And indeed, if you recall from last week's presentation featuring consultant Alan McGabby of Experts.com, we dove a little bit into the concepts of centralized and decentralized business models and why it is best to decentralize the company in the case of CNC's brand globalization scandal rather than concentrating its production capability in one single specific country, in this case mainland China. Thereof, we're going to build upon those ideas in this presentation here today, going into even more detail on how that is to culturally influence the company image across regions of the world, not only Europe, but other municipalities and regions across the globe. So, what's on the agenda of this presentation? First off, starting off with the presentation, we're going to dive into a quick highlight list of what our recommendations are accordingly to Sir Alan McGabby of Experts.com's last week's situational analysis presentation. And then next, following up on our list, is diving into a bit of a logical reasoning of why they're the most feasible and or practical in this particular situation or scenario, if you would. And then thirdly, concluding the presentation, we're going to dive into a bit more detail of what the consequences are of taking or not taking the suggested approaches as we're going to go and have been going into a little detail bit by bit throughout the set of presentations we've given on what the consequences are of taking the suggested approaches, as mentioned in the situational analysis presentation of last week with Sir Alan McGabby. So, speaking of the agenda, the recommendations were, according to Alan McGabby, the lead consultant of Experts.com, we said that it is best seen to suit the company's current scenario to decentralize its structure and the operational process to ensure that we keep the foreign expansion as well as keeping the Chinese foreign customers living in that part of the world. So the consequence of not taking this approach is that we get to lose not only the expansion itself, but the true image of the company will be proven as the claim of those European foreign consumers, as if they have called us, that they've already called us racist due to publishing that controversial commercial of Paw bath gel. So one thing I'd like to mention is the European consumers are different different than the Chinese consumers in one specific point, and that is the racial belief and the consistency and the belief of race superiority, especially when it comes to the color of the skin and the judgments made according to it. So, and then secondly, changing the slogan associated with the product is presumably easier than transferring the core competency of the company from its current product, meaning the Pao Pao bath gel commercial, to another product that is presumably some other product included in our product line. So what we need to do is to try to change the slogan associated with the product instead of the product itself as the core competency of the company, and the aspects associated with it. Which brings us to the second component of our presentation, which is why they are the most valuable, meaning the recommendations, and feasible in this particular scenario. We have already been accused of being called racist due to publishing that controversial commercial. So I'm not saying the suggested approaches are the best there is of solutions, but they are at least the least risk-free if you think about it more thoroughly. And voila, when we change the slogan in a way that the product is no longer associated with the Chinese myths and legends, the European consumers will gain the ability to relate to what the product is associated with, knowing it is not really a product that is unique to China or associated with the Chinese principles any longer. So the consequence of taking this process, this suggested approach, is that you get to have no power and inconsistency in the price structures and quality standards and what the product is associated with, but you get to keep your customers and retrieve their trust, so to speak, and you get to prove the company's image as not racist as opposed to what they have already called you. So changing the name or the core competency of the company's product, in this case Pao Pao's bath gel, is extremely difficult because we've already cultivated this particular name within the European target market consumers, and it would be difficult. It's not impossible. It would be difficult to choose the approach you're going to take when you want to change the name. So it's got a more detailed conceptuality, which we're going to go into more detail of in the next presentation. But regardless, what we've already done has just given the impression of being racist to the consumers of the European region. So we want to retrieve their trust and not end up losing the expansion or the consumers that live in that part of the world, them being Chinese or of foreign countries other than China. That's why changing the slogan and what the product is associated with is, in my opinion, easier and a more feasible and convenient solution than choosing to centralize the company's production capability in China itself and choose to abolish the European expansion and lose the European consumers credit that they offer you. Hope you've enjoyed the presentation. Thank you. Out.